America is in a spiritual battle. Well, that's how Speaker of the House Mike Johnson describes the divisions in the country today. He also said God has called him to be a servant leader during these turbulent times. Well, CBN News chief political analyst David Brody talked with Speaker Johnson about the challenges ahead.
Speaker Johnson, David Brody. How are you? Great to see you.
When we met in the ceremonial room on Capitol Hill, House Speaker Mike Johnson looked at ease, although his job has been anything but.
You are Speaker of the House. It kind of feels like you actually might have a different title, Herder of the Cats.
It's important to note this is not a job I ever aspired to. We got ourselves in a bit of a pickle here.
A GOP pickle that can go from sweet to sour at any time. He's the first speaker in history to take over in the middle of a session and finds himself running a one-seat Republican majority and split caucus.
Democrats typically tend to think more kind of like a union. You know, they sort of stick together. They're more monolithic. They move as a herd. They're more kind of social animals, right? Republicans, by contrast, are a rugged individualist. You know, we care deeply about our core principles and our philosophy, and we're not easily moved, and that's a great blessing, usually. But when you're trying to keep all those cats together and move in the same direction with a one-vote majority, it sometimes presents challenges.
Such as House Freedom Caucus members frustrated over what they call bad spending deals with Democrats rush through the process in typical D.C. fashion.
They're clearly concerned about the way you're governing.
Yeah, so what some of my colleagues will privately admit, but not always publicly, is they understand we have the biggest challenge that's ever been presented to the Congress.
That hasn't stopped Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene from filing a motion to vacate, to jettison Speaker Johnson, because she doesn't think he's standing up enough for conservative policy positions. Of course, that's not easy when Democrats control the White House, Senate, and you barely have a Republican majority in the House.
And so I have virtually zero leverage to be able to negotiate and get a better package.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, you're going to speak to her this week. Have you spoken to her?
I've tried. I tried over the 2-week break. She wasn't interested in speaking.
She says you're, basically a deep state operative. She didn't use the word operative, but you're working for the deep state, in essence, paraphrasing. Also, she's attacked your faith.
Well, I try to follow all the biblical admonitions as I do every day, and one of them says you bless those who persecute you. I'm getting a lot of practice in that right now, and that a soft word turns away wrath.
That doesn't mean he's not pushing back against her threat.
We've got to demonstrate to the American people that we can keep the train on the tracks, and so pulling a motion to vacate, removing the speaker right now, is exactly the opposite of what we need to show the country.
Do you believe that if there's some sort of motion to vacate that she goes forward with this, that there will be some Republicans, one or two, whatever it is, that jump and go with Democrats and Hakeem Jeffries is all of a sudden speaker? Do you think that is a potential reality here?
Well, listen, if the chair is vacated, it's certainly possible you get a Democrat speaker.
And soon, Speaker Johnson will need to decide whether to put a Ukraine funding bill to a vote, something conservative members do not want.
If you put this Ukraine bill, even with some of your creative suggestions, on the floor, that's going to probably trigger that motion to vacate.
Well, we're working through all those issues with all of our members. We're trying to build that consensus that we talked about.
On the issue of abortion, consensus will be difficult for the GOP, especially now that former President Trump just refused to endorse a federal abortion ban, a move the avid pro-life speaker tells us he understands.
What we have to do right now, our challenge, is to build a culture of life. Before you can have a political consensus on an issue that's this controversial, you have to build a cultural consensus first.
So you're saying it's a smart move, at least in these times right now politically. It just seems to kind of fit the moment for now?
Well, I'm saying that we recognize right now that the votes don't exist in Congress to have a federal ban at any level. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
One issue where the House GOP seems unified is illegal immigration, arguing President Biden's policies have been disastrous for America.
I think they want that open border, and I think their actions show that.
Why? Why do you think they want it specifically?
It sounds like a conspiracy theory, but I think it's actually true that the ultimate design is to turn some of these illegals into voters for their cause and to change the census outcome in 2030. Because if you can distribute people around the country in strategic ways and put them in strategic places, the census does not just count citizens, it counts residents, all persons, and that could dramatically affect the map in Congress. I mean, it sounds like some sort of crazy, criminal design, and in my view it is, but I think that's what they're doing.
Johnson will certainly speak his mind, especially when it comes to his Christian faith, a stance that's led to some criticism.
Well, we've been mocked and I mean, mercilessly in the press. They've tried to attack me and my family, my wife and children. And look, we're undaunted by it. I mean, you know, that is going to happen if you stand for truth.
And nowadays, if you say the word spiritual warfare, the left needs smelling salts at that point. I mean, so talk to me a little bit about the spiritual state of this country, of America today. And do you see it in those terms, spiritual warfare going on?
I do. I mean, if you're a Christian, that's how you understand these things. We're really in a battle of worldviews right now. It's not even a battle between Republicans and Democrats anymore. It's two competing visions over what kind of nation we are, who we are as a people. Remember, Marxism, communism, socialism are grounded in the belief that there is no creator, there is no God. And that's the essence, that's the foundation of their belief. That is not who we are.
What happens to America if that godless philosophy wins out?
Ronald Reagan said, if we ever forget that we're one nation under God, we will be a nation gone under.
Johnson is determined to do his very best to make sure that doesn't happen on his watch.
I have no value other than as a servant. I'm trying to be a servant leader here, and at a very challenging time, in very difficult circumstances. That's my humble prayer every day, you know, that we would be able to serve well and bring honor to God in the process.
David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Well, isn't it wonderful to see a true Christian serving and saying, my job here is to be a servant leader, and I want to serve the people, and that is a wonderful thing. Let me remind you what the Bible says and instructs all Christians to do, for us to pray for those who are in leadership. They have very difficult jobs. They have very difficult decisions. And these are definitely trying times, not just here in America, but all around the world. So please pray for our leadership, whether that's in Congress or the Senate or the current administration. Pray for all those in leadership. Let us ask God to intervene and guide them in their decisions. That's the only way forward for our country. So if you believe in one nation under God, well, then pray for our leaders.